You cleared your cookies, opened incognito mode, maybe even turned on a VPN, and it feels like you've covered your tracks. But websites don't just rely on cookies or IP addresses anymore. They build something called a digital fingerprint, a unique profile based on your browser, device, hardware, fonts, and even the way your system processes graphics and audio. It works like an invisible ID card that follows you across the web even after you cleared your data. You can't completely hide your fingerprint, but you can make it far less useful. And today, I'll show you how. Now, the technical term for this is browser metadata enumeration, which sounds less like online tracking and more like paperwork at a tax office. But the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. Every time your browser loads a website, it shares small bits of information so the page can work properly. Things like your screen resolution, browser version, operating system, installed fonts, language settings, time zone, battery status, connected media devices, and even the way your hardware renders graphics and audio. On their own, those details seem pretty harmless, but there are thousands of these tiny variables, and when they get combined together, they can create a profile that is surprisingly unique to you. In a lot of cases, unique enough to recognize this same browser again out of billions of users. A good way to think about it is this. Clearing cookies or using a VPN is like putting on a mask. It hides your face, but fingerprinting isn't focused on your face, it's looking at everything else. If you're the only person in a city wearing a purple velvet suit, bright yellow boots, and carrying a vintage umbrella, then I don't really need to see your face to recognize you. Your overall appearance is already unique enough to track, and that's basically how browser fingerprinting works. Your device setup becomes the outfit that follows you across the web. Now, before we get into this, quick reminder, if you like these kind of breakdowns, then subscribe and hit the bell. It helps the channel, and it helps me know that you want more videos like this. So how does a site actually build a fingerprint? Well, usually by collecting lots of small details that your browser already shares automatically. One of the most common techniques is called Canvas Fingerprinting. Now, Canvas is just a normal browser feature used to display graphics, animations, charts, and other visual elements on a website. But the site can also use it quietly in the background. It can ask your browser to draw a hidden image or piece of text, then check the exact result. And even though the image looks the same to you, different devices often render it slightly differently behind the scenes. Your graphics card, operating system, browser, display settings, and installed fonts can all affect the final result in tiny different ways. And those tiny differences become part of your fingerprint. Fonts are another great example. Most people have a fairly standard setup, but once you install extra software, language packs, editing programs, or custom fonts, your browser starts looking a little more unique. Audio can work the exact same way. A site can generate a sound signal in the browser and measure how your device processes it. You usually won't hear anything, but small differences in hardware and software can still change the result slightly. Websites can sometimes also detect things like connected microphones, cameras, headphones, or speakers, and on their own, none of these details sound very important, but when a site combines enough of them together, it can start recognizing your browser the same way that people recognize a fingerprint. Not because of one single detail, but because of the overall pattern. Now compare that to a VPN. A VPN is mainly designed to hide your IP address and encrypt your internet traffic. So instead of a website seeing your real location or network, it sees the VPN server instead. And that's still very useful for privacy. It helps reduce location-based tracking, protects your traffic on public Wi-Fi, and adds an extra layer of separation between you and the sites that you visit. But remember that mask analogy from earlier. A VPN changes your wear, it does not change your outfit. Your browser, font, screen size, hardware behavior, and other identifying signals can still look very similar from one session to the next. So even if your IP address changes, your browser can still be recognizable. And honestly, that's one of the biggest misconceptions around online privacy as a whole. A VPN is an important privacy tool, but it's not a complete anti-tracking solution by itself. That said, some VPNs do include extra privacy features that can help reduce fingerprinting. Tools like NordVPN Threat Protection or Surfshark's CleanWeb can block many of the trackers, scripts, and third-party requests that websites use to collect fingerprinting data in the first place. In some cases, they can stop certain tracking domains or browser scripts from loading entirely, which means less information gets collected about your device during a browsing session. So while they won't automatically make your browser anonymous, they can reduce how much information gets exposed during normal browsing. And realistically, that's what modern privacy tools are really about now, reducing the amount of data companies are able to collect about you over time. If you want to try those features for yourself, I'll leave links to both services down in the description. You probably won't notice fingerprinting itself disappearing overnight, but you can often see fewer tracking requests loading in the background, fewer invasive ads, and less data being collected across sites over time. So even though a VPN can reduce a lot of this tracking, your browser setup still plays a huge role in how recognizable you are online. And that's where privacy-focused browsers and extensions come in. Different tools approach fingerprinting in different ways. Brave, for example, tries to reduce fingerprinting by blocking trackers and randomizing certain browser data. So instead of a website seeing the exact same fingerprint every single time, some of those signals become less reliable and harder to link across different sessions. Other browsers take a different approach. Safari and especially Tor Browser focus more on uniformity. Instead of trying to make you look different every single time, they try to make everyone look very similar. Think of it like replacing everyone's unique outfit with the same plain uniform. If thousands of people appear identical, then tracking one specific person becomes much harder. And extensions can help with this too. Good tracker blockers and privacy extensions can stop some fingerprinting scripts, analytics requests, and third-party trackers from loading in the first place. And this is where tools like Threat Protection or CleanWeb can actually complement a VPN pretty well. Alongside hiding your IP address, they can also reduce the number of tracking scripts or requests running in the background while you browse. But there's still a balance here. If your browser becomes too customized or heavily modified, then that can sometimes make you stand out even more. So the best approach is usually a balanced one. Use a reputable VPN, a mainstream privacy-focused browser, and sensible tracker blocking features to reduce unnecessary tracking without turning your browser into something completely unusable compared to everyone else online. At this point, it helps to see what your browser actually exposes online. If you go to a site like AmIUnique and click See My Fingerprint, the site starts collecting these same kinds of browser signals that tracking companies and websites can access in the background. Within a few seconds, it builds a profile of your browser and compares it against millions of other fingerprints in its database. And the amount of information being collected is usually a bit surprising the first time you see it. Beyond the standard signals, it can even pull things like your operating system, time zone, device memory, connected microphones, cameras, and audio devices, graphics card information, battery status, network information, even tiny rendering differences created by your hardware and browser setup. Then the site combines all of those signals together and estimates how unique your browser looks compared to everyone else. And in a lot of cases, the results come back saying your browser is unique among millions of users. And while that doesn't mean a website instantly knows your identity, it does mean that your browser will become recognizable over time. An ad network, analytics company, or website can potentially use that fingerprint to link your browsing sessions together, track your activity across different sites, measure your behavior, personalize ads, detect bots, flag suspicious logins, or identify whether you're a returning visitor, even after cookies are cleared. And once you see your own fingerprint laid out like this, browser tracking starts to feel a lot more real. So when you put all of this together, the takeaway is pretty simple. Hiding your IP address is only one layer of your online privacy. Your browser and device setup can still expose a huge amount of information in the background through fingerprinting, and that's why a more complete privacy setup usually combines multiple layers, a reputable VPN, tracker blocking features, and a browser that takes fingerprinting seriously. Tools like Threat Protection, CleanWeb, NordVPN, Brave Safari, and privacy extensions all approach the problem differently, but the goal here is the same: reducing how much information websites and advertisers can collect about you over time. I'll leave links to all the tools, browsers, and fingerprint testing websites that we talked about down in the description, including the VPNs that we tested with built-in tracker blocking features if you want to try them out for yourself. And now I'm curious, when you ran the fingerprint test, what was the most surprising thing that your browser revealed about your device? Let me know down in the comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching vpnMentor, and we'll see you in the next video.